We are live. Seconds early.
Yay! Oh, I'm knocking on some wood.
Oh, only a few seconds early.
It's
Right
only
now,
it was
now it's
only
right on time.
that once that messed us up, but we still in the back of our mind are always scared that we aren't live. But I am old the dude. He is,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and we have
And
made
we
it
have
to
a number.
Monday. That means you had a really good weekend.
The number went up above zero, so that's good.
Yeah, that means we're definitely live. Uh, I was telling Richard that went out to the land Saturday and Sunday to work on the driveway. Uh, try to keep the water from eroding over my little concrete pipe. I actually had Chris out there with me yesterday. He got him some sun and some sweat, but all in all, it was a pretty good weekend. Uh, Clash of Kings, Theon 6. This is the beginning of the end, or the middle of the end, or however you want to look at it.
This is time for yet another fake out death from George here, and
Yes, this
and
is true.
and, and a reveal of the previous fake out death as well. So
Yes, this is true too. And if you're on the first read, it was like, what? Boom. You never saw the fake out death coming.
right. Wait, what? What just happened? Who are you?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
yeah, kind of an important character.
Very important character. But if you've seen any of these, you know that we start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw with the chapter, and then I will jump in with my stupid stuff. So take it away, Richard.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Class 66, Theon 6. A common mistake. Theon, say your name a bunch of times. No reason, just in case. Telling you for a friend. I call it a common mistake, and I feel like that's one of the key lines. It's not so much of how common it is as that it's a mistake that they have in common. But anyway, Maester Lewin came to him when the first scouts were seen outside the walls. My Lord Prince, he said, you must yield. Theon stared at the platter of oat cakes, honey, and blood sausage they'd brought him to break his fast. Another sleepless night had left his nerves raw, and the very sight of food sickened him. There has been no reply from my uncle? None, the maester said, nor from your father on pike. Send more birds. It will not serve. By the time the birds reach, send them. Knocking the platter of food aside with a swipe of his arm, he pushed off the blankets and rose from Ned Stark's bed naked and angry. Or do you want me dead? Is that it, Lewin? The truth now? The small gray man was unafraid. My order serves. Yes, but whom? The patriarchy. See, Triplet Targaryens, episode 1. The realm, Maester Lewin said, and Winterfell. Theon, once I taught you sums and letters, history, and warcraft, and might have taught you more had you wished to learn. I will not claim to bear you any great love, no, but I cannot hate you either. Even if I did, so long as you hold Winterfell, I am bound by oath to give you counsel. So now I counsel you to yield. Anyway, laughing at the twos. Theon stooped to scoop a puddled cloak off the floor, shook off the rushes, and draped it over his shoulders. A fire. I'll have a fire and clean garb. Where's Wex? I'll not go to my grave in dirty clothes. You have no hope of holding here, the maester went on. If your lord father meant to send you aid, he would have done so by now. It is the neck that concerns him. The battle for the north will be fought amidst the ruins of Moat Cailin. That may be so, said Theon, and so long as I hold Winterfell, Sir Roderick and Stark's Lord Bannerman cannot march south to take my uncle in the rear. I'm not so innocent of warcraft as you think, old man. I have food enough to stand a year's siege if need be. There will be no siege. Perhaps they will spend a day or two fashioning ladders and tying grapnels to the ends of ropes, but soon enough they will come over your walls in 100 places at once. You may be able to hold the keep for a time, but the castle will fall within the hour. You would do better to open your gates and ask for mercy? I know what kind of mercy they have for me. There is a way. So he wasn't necessarily going to say mercy. We've got you flanked. Anyway, he wasn't necessarily going to say mercy. Anyway, he was probably going to say and ask for and the opportunity to take the black, right? It's probably what I was going to say. But anyway, so mercy. I know what kind of mercy they have for me. There is a way. Lewin has a brilliant solution, but Theon won't listen. And as you were saying before we started, that's might be a reason for that, right? It could be that Bran or the Great Other or one or the other of our two chess players might be feel it's in their best interests to delay this decision so that Ramsay has a chance to arrive in time.
Right.
I am Ironborn, Theon reminded him. I have my own way. What choice have they left me? No, don't answer. I've heard enough of your counsel. Go and send those birds as I commanded, and tell Lauren I want to see him. And Wex as well. I'll have my mail scoured clean, and my garrison assembled in the yard. For a moment he thought the maester was going to defy him, but finally Llewyn bowed stiffly. As you command. It feels like, as we said, that they're sort of delaying their conversation so that Ramsay can arrive in time.
Yeah.
Possibly through divine intervention.
Well, also, I mean, you got to stop and think about it. The divine intervention, the hidden fingers, well, I better wait till we get a little bit further in the chapter. Never mind.
Okay. I'm sure there'll be opportunity.
Yeah.
They made a pitifully small assembly. The Iron Men were few, the yard large. The Northmen will be on us before nightfall, he told them. Sir Roderick Castle and all the lords who have come to his call. I will not run from them. I took this castle and I mean to hold it, to live or die as Prince of Winterfell. But I will not command any man to die with me. If you leave now, before Sir Roderick's main force is upon us, there's still a chance you may win free. He unsheathed his longsword and drew a line in the dirt. Those who would stay and fight, step forward. No one spoke, and then stood in their mail and fur and boiled leather, as still as if they were made of stone. A few exchanged looks. Eldrick Stoneskin would
yeah, I was actually thinking about that.
Erzin shuffled his feet. Dyke Harlaw hawked and spat. A finger of wind ruffled Endahar's long fair hair. Theon felt as though he were drowning. Why am I surprised, he thought bleakly. His father had forsaken him, his uncles, his sister, even that wretched creature Reek. Why should his men prove any more loyal? There was nothing to say, nothing to do. He could only stand there beneath the great gray walls and the hard white sky, sword in hand, waiting. Wex was the first to cross the line. 3 quick steps, and he stood at Theon's side, slouching. Shamed by the boy, Black Lauren followed, all scowls. Who else? He demanded. Red Rolf came forward. Crom, Warlock, Timar, and his brothers, Ulf the Ill, Harik Sheepstealer, 4 Harlaws and 2 Botleys. Ken the Whale was the last, 17 in all. So Harlaws and Botleys we care about because they tend to be loyal to Asha and Theon.
Yeah.
Erzin was among those who did not move, and Stig, and every man of the 10 that Asha had brought from Deepwood Mott. Go then, Theon told them. Run to my sister. She'll give you all a warm welcome, I have no doubt. So it is possible that Triss is amongst these 10, potentially. The way it says 2 Botleys, and he doesn't say that all the Botleys are both Botleys. It says 2 Botleys, right?
Right.
So there could be some more Harlaws and Botleys that are among Ash's men, potentially.
Possible.
Yep. Erzin was among those who did not move, and Stig and every man of the 10. So that's at least 12 that are heading back to Asha. Stig had the grace to at least to look ashamed. The rest moved off without a word. Theon turned to the 17 who remained. Back to the walls. If the gods should spare us, I shall remember every man of you. Black Lauren stayed when the others had gone. Castle folk will turn on us as soon as the fight begins. I know that. What'd you have me do? Put them out, said Lauren. Every one. Theon shook his head. Is the noose ready? It is. You mean to use it? Do you know a better way? Aye. I'll take my axe and stand on that drawbridge and let them come try me. 1 at a time, 2, 3, it makes no matter. None will pass the moat while I still draw breath. He means to die, thought Theon. It's not victory he wants, it's an end worthy of a song. We'll use the noose. So Preston has talked about how the Ironborn love glory and songs, but we don't actually hear their songs.
Yeah.
Right? We hear about how Dagmar Cleftjaw has songs about him, and Theon talks about how people are going to sing of him taking Winterfell, and actually Mance or Abel seems to be somewhat interested in that concept, right? But So they like the glory of inspiring songs, but we don't really hear them singing much.
No.
Um, anyway, there's also a song about a bunch of archers killing a guy. Doesn't sound all that interesting anyway. That's all that would really happen. Why would they waste their time sending men 1, 2, 3 at a time at them when they could just shoot them? I feel like this is where death metal originated. As you say, Lauren replied, contempt in his eyes. Wex helped garb him for battle. Beneath his black surcoat and golden mantle was a shirt of well-oiled ringmail, and under that a layer of stiff boiled leather. Once armed and armored, Theon climbed the watchtower at the angle where the eastern and southern walls came together to have a look at his doom. The Northmen were spreading out to encircle the castle. It was hard to judge their numbers. 1,000 at least, perhaps twice that many, against 17. They brought catapults and scorpions. He saw no siege towers rumbling up the King's Road, but there was timber enough in the Wolf's Wood to build as many as were required. Theon studied their banners through Maester Luwin's mirrorish lens tube. The Serwyn Curwin, I can never decide. Anyway, I guess I say Cersei, so maybe I should say Serwyn. I don't know. The Serwyn battle axe flapped bravely wherever he looked, and there were tall heart trees as well, and mermen from White Harbor. Less common were the sigils of Flint and Karstark. Here and there he even saw the bull moose of the Hornwoods, but no Glovers, Asha saw to them, no Boltons from the Dreadfort, no Umbers come down from the shadow of the wall. Not that they were needed. Soon enough, the boy Clay Kerwin appeared before the. I thought I said Kerwin. Whatever. Appeared before the gates carrying a peace banner on a tall staff to announce that Sir Roderick Castle wished to parley with Theon Turncloak. Turncloak. The name was bitter as bile. He'd gone to Pike to lead his father's longships against Lannisport, he remembered. I shall be out shortly, he shouted down. Alone. Black Lauren disapproved. Only blood can wash out blood, he declared. Knights may keep their truces with other knights, but they are not so careful of their honor when dealing with those they deem outlaw. Theon bristled. I'm the Prince of Winterfell and heir to the Iron Islands. Now go find the girl and do as I told you. Black Lauren gave him a murderous look. I, Prince. He's turned against me too, Theon realized. Of late it seemed to him as if the very stones of Winterfell had turned against him. If I die, I die friendless and abandoned. What choice did that leave him but to live? He rode to the kind of like that attitude of what choice they'd give him but to live, but anyway.
Yeah.
He rode to the gatehouse with his crown on his head. A woman was drawing water from the well, and Gage the cook stood in the door of the kitchens. They hid their hatred behind sullen looks and faces blank as slate, yet he could feel it all the same. When the drawbridge was lowered, a chill wind sighed across the moat. The touch of it made him shiver. It is a cold, nothing more, Theon told himself. A shiver, not a tremble. Even brave men shiver. Into the teeth of that wind he rode, under the portcullis, over the drawbridge. The outer gates swung open to let him pass. As he emerged beneath the walls, he could sense the boys watching from the empty sockets where their eyes had been. Well, it's not really Bran, but it does remind us of a man can only be brave when he's afraid.
Yes, this is true.
And of course, we talked in our very first live stream about how George is constantly doing this whole shivering thing and mixing that in with people being scared and so forth.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's headed to Wintertown, correct? Roughly?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably.
Well, wouldn't the cold wind be coming from the north?
I imagine.
Okay.
So Roderick, and the whole idea of the very stone turning against him also gives us some of that symbolism of the land or even a castle coming alive, or maybe the stars coming alive. Anyway.
Yep.
Sir Roderick waited in the market, astride his dappled gelding. Beside him, the direwolf of Stark flapped from a staff borne by young Clay. I guess I said Kerwin last time. Well, I'm going back and forth, so we'll go with Kerwin again.
Okay.
They were alone in the square, though Theon could see archers on the roofs of surrounding houses, spearmen to his right, and to his left a line of mounted knights beneath the merman and trident of House Manderley. Every one of them wants me dead. Some were boys he drunk with, diced with, even wenched with. That would not save him if he fell into their hands. Sir Roderick, Theon reined to a halt. It grieves me that we must meet as foes. My own grief is that I must wait a while to hang you, the old knight spat onto the muddy ground. Theon Turncloak. I am a Greyjoy of Pike, Theon reminded him. The cloak my father swaddled me in bore a kraken, not a direwolf. For 10 years you've been a ward of Stark. Hostage and prisoner, I call it. Then perhaps Lord Eddard should have kept you chained to a dungeon wall. Instead, he raised you among his own sons, the sweet boys you had butchered. And to my undying shame, I trained you in the arts of war. Would that I had thrust a sword through your belly instead of placing one in your hand. I came out to parley, not to suffer your insults. Say what you have to say, old man. What would you have of me? 2 things, the old man said. Winterfell and your life. Command your men to open the gates and lay down their arms. Those who murdered no children shall be free to walk away, but you shall be held for King Rob's justice. May the gods take pity on you when he returns. He may have been wise to come alone because he may have not been coming back otherwise. Anyway, I could see any one of those 17 could have just been like, oh, really? Here you go. Rob will never look on Winterfell again, Theon promised. Well, he's right about that. He will break himself on Moat Cailin as every southern army has done for 10,000 years. We hold the north now, sir. You hold 3 castles, replied Sir Roderick. And this one I mean to take back, Turncloak. Theon ignored that. Here are my terms. You have until evenfall to disperse. Those who swear fealty to Balon Greyjoy as their king, and to myself as Prince of Winterfell, would be confirmed in their rights and properties and suffer no harm. Those who defy us will be destroyed. Young Kerwin was incredulous. Are you mad, Greyjoy? What madness is this? Anyway. Sir Roderick shook his head. Only vain, lad. Theon has always had too lofty an opinion of himself, I fear. We're gonna see this lofty opinion of himself here in a minute, too. The old man jabbed a finger at him. Do not imagine that I need to wait for Robb to fight his way up the neck to deal with the likes of you. I have near 2,000 men with me, and if the tales be true, you have no more than 50. Yes, Lizzie. 17, in truth. Theon made himself smile. I have something better than men. He raised a fist over his head, the signal Black Lorne had been told to watch for. The walls of Winterfell were behind him, but Sir Roderick faced them squarely and could not fail to see. Theon watched his face. When his chin quivered under those stiff white whiskers, he knew just what the old man was seeing. He is not surprised, he thought with sadness, but the fear is there. This is craven, Sir Roderick said. To use a child so. This is despicable. Oh, I know, said Theon. It's a dish I tasted myself. Or have you forgotten? I was 10 when I was taken from my father's house to make certain he would raise no more rebellions. It is not the same. Isn't it, though? It's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Can't stop the strain now, Richard. We're committed. Theon's face was impassive. The noose I wore was not made of hempen rope. That's true enough. But I felt it all the same. And it chafed Sir Roderick. It chafed me raw. He never quite realized that till now. But as the words came spilling out, he saw the truth of them. No harm was ever done you, and no harm will be done your best, so long as you... I wonder if he needed those specific words to actually give Sir Roderick pause, to make him a little more conflicted, right? It almost sounds like this is an inspired speech, the way he says it, right? Right. He had never quite realized that until now, but as the words came spilling out, he saw the truth of them.
Right.
It almost makes it sound like somebody else is planting these thoughts and words in his mouth. Anyway.
Yeah.
No harm was ever done you, and no harm will be done your best, so long as you... Sir Roderick never gave him the chance to finish. Viper, the knight declared, his face red with rage beneath those white whiskers. I gave you the chance to save your men and die with some small shred of honor, Turncloak. I should have known that was too much to ask of a child killer. His hand went to the hilt of his sword. I ought to cut you down here and now and put an end to your lies and deceits. By the gods, I should. Theon did not fear a doddering old man, but those watching archers in that line of knights were a different matter. If the swords came out, his chances of getting back to the castle alive were small to none. For swear your oath and murder me, and you will watch your little Beth strangle at the end of a rope. Sir Roderick's knuckles had gone white, but after a moment he took his hand off the sword hilt. Truly, I have lived too long. I will not disagree, sir. Will you accept my terms? I have a duty to Lady Catelyn and House Stark. And your own house? Beth is the last of your blood. The old knight drew himself up straight. Offer myself in my daughter's place. Release her and take me as your hostage. Surely the castellan of Winterfell is worth more than a child. Not to me. A valiant gesture, old man, but I am not that great a fool. Not to Lord Manderley or Leopold Tallhart either, I'd wager. Your sorry old skin is worth no more to them than any other man's. No, I'll keep the girl, and keep her safe so long as you do as I've commanded you. Her life is in your hands. Gods be good, Theon. How can you do this? You know I must attack. Have sworn. And you could kind of see this. If Walder Frey said this to Catelyn, it would be just as correct, right? You know, how can you do this? You know, I'm still going to have to go through with what I'm doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just an observation that I've always it's always been in my mind, like, where did Catelyn cross the line there, right? When did she make the murderous move, right? Is it when you make the oath or when you follow through on the oath? Which one of those is the actual murder? Anyway,
Right.
of Jingle Bell. Anyway, it reminds me a lot of the murder of Jingle Bell. If this host is still in arms before my gate when the sun sets, Beth will hang, said Theon. Another hostage will follow her to the grave at first light, and another at sunset. Every dawn and every dusk will mean a death until you are gone. I have no lack of hostages. He did not wait for a reply, but wheeled Smiler around and rode back toward the castle. He went slowly at first, but the thought of those archers at his back soon drove him to a canter. Small heads watched him come from their spikes, their tarred and flayed faces looming larger with every yard. Between them stood little Beth Castle, noosed and crying. Theon put his heel on the Smiler and broke into a hard gallop. Smiler's hoofs clattered on the drawbridge like drum beats. In the yard, he dismounted and handed his reins to Wex. It may stay them, he told Blacklorin. We'll know by sunset. Take the girl in till then, and keep her somewhere safe. Under the layers of leather, steel, and wool, he was slick with sweat. I need a cup of wine. A vat of wine would do even better. A fire had been laid in Ned Stark's bedchamber. Theon sat beside it and filled a cup with a heavy-bodied red from the castle vaults, wine as sour as his mood. They will attack, he thought gloomily, staring at the flames. Sir Roderick loves his daughter, but he is still Castellan, and most of all a knight. Had it been Theon with a noose around his neck, and Lord Balon commanding the army without, the warhorns would already have sounded the attack, he had no doubt. He should thank the gods that Sir Roderick was not ironborn. The men of the Greenlands were made of softer stuff, though he was not certain they would prove soft enough. If not, if the old man gave the command to storm the castle regardless, Winterfell would fall. Theon entertained no delusions on that count. His 17 might kill 3, 4, 5 times their own number, but in the end they would be overwhelmed. Theon stared at the flames over the rim of his wine goblet, brooding on the injustice of it all. I rode beside Robb Stark in the Whispering Wood, he muttered. He'd been frightened that night, but not like this. It was one thing to go into battle surrounded by friends, and another to perish alone and despised. Mercy, he thought, miserably. When the wine brought no solace, Theon sent Wex to fetch his bow and took himself to the old inner war. Actually, something I wanted to say there. Oh, he's staring at the flames, which is, always an interesting thing to note. When the wine brought no solace, Theon sent Wex to fetch his bow and took himself to the old inner ward. There he stood, loosing shaft after shaft at the archery butts until his shoulders ached and his fingers were bloody, pausing only long enough to pull the arrows from the targets for another round. I saved Bran's life with this bow, he reminded himself. Would that I could save my own. Women came to the well, but did not linger. Whatever they saw in Theon's face sent them away quickly. Behind him, the broken tower stood, its summit as jagged as a crown where fire had collapsed the upper stories long ago. As the sun moved, the shadow of the tower moved as well, gradually lengthening, a black arm reaching out for Theon Greyjoy. By the time the sun touched the wall, he was in its grasp. If I hang the girl, the Northmen will attack at once, he thought as he loosed a shaft. If I do not hang her, they will know my threats are empty. He knocked another arrow to his bow. There is no way out, none. If you had 100 archers as good as yourself, you might have a chance to hold the castle, a voice said softly. When he turned, Maester Luwin was behind him. Go away, Theon told him. I've had enough of your counsel. And life? Have you had enough of that, my lord prince? He raised the bow. One more word and I'll put this shaft through your heart. You won't. Theon bent the bow, drawing the gray goose feathers back to his cheek. Care to make a wager? I'm your last hope, Theon. I have no hope, he thought, yet he lowered the bow half an inch and said, I will not run. I do not speak of running. Take the black. The Night's Watch? Theon let the bow unbend slowly and pointed the arrow up at the ground. Sir Roderick has served House Stark all his life, and House Stark has always been a friend of the Watch. He will not deny you. Open your gates. Lay down your arms. Accept his terms, and he must let you take the black. A brother of the night's watch. It meant no crown, no sons, no wife, but it meant life, and life with honor. Ned Stark's own brother had chosen the watch, and Jon Snow as well. Had they, though? Had they really chosen? I have black garb aplenty, once I tear the krakens off. Even my horse is black. I could rise high on the watch. Chief of Rangers, likely even Lord Commander. Let Asha keep the bloody islands. They're as dreary as she is. He doesn't even know the watch well enough to know that it's First Ranger. Anyway.
Right.
And yet he thinks he's going to be Lord Commander. If I served at Eastwatch, I could command my own ship, and there's fine hunting beyond the wall. As for woman, what wildling woman wouldn't want a prince in her bed? A slow smile crept across his face. A black cloak can't be turned. I'd be as good as any man. Prince Theon! The sudden shout shattered his daydream. Crom was loping across the ward. The Northmen! He felt a sudden sick sense of dread. Is it the attack? Mr. Lynn clutched his arm. There's still time. Raise a peace banner. They're fighting, Crom said urgently. More men came up, hundreds of them. And at first they made to join the others, but now they've fallen on them. They made to join the others. Anyway. Is it Asha? Had she come to save him after all? But Crom gave a shake of his head. No, these are Northmen, I tell you. The bloody man on their banner. The flayed man in the Dreadfort. We could belong to the bastard Bolton before his capture, Theon recalled. It was hard to believe that a vile creature like him could sway the Boltons to change their allegiance, but nothing else made sense. I'll see this for myself, Theon said. A black cloak can't be turned, LOL. For someone who spent the last decade in the North, he really hasn't been paying attention. Yes. Tell it to Mance Raider. Maester Luwin trailed after him. By the time they reached the battlements, dead men and dying horses were strewn about the market square outside the gates. He saw no battle lines, only a swirling chaos of banners and blades. Shouts and screams rang through the cold autumn air. Sir Roderick seemed to have the numbers, but the Dreadfort men were better led and had taken the others unawares. Once again, they're referred to as the others.
Man.
Theon watched them charge and wheel and charge again, chopping the larger force to bloody pieces every time they tried to form up between the houses. He could hear the crash of iron axe heads and oaken shields over the terrified trumpeting of a maimed horse. The inn was burning, he saw. So yeah, we've had others used twice there to describe Roderick's men. So we have a group of uncertain loyalty led by a dead man showing up to fight the others, which seems to be the pattern.
Yeah.
Black Lauren appeared beside him and stood silently for a time. The sun was low in the west, painting the fields and houses all a glowing red. A thin wavering cry of pain drifted over the walls, and a war horn sounded off beyond the burning houses. Theon watched a wounded man drag himself painfully across the ground, smearing his life's blood in the dirt as he struggled to reach the well that stood at the center of the market square. He died before he got there. He wore a leather jerkin and conical half-helm, but no badge to tell which side he'd fought on. Crows came in the blue dusk with the evening stars. The Dothraki believe the stars are spirits of the valiant dead, Theon said. Maester Luwin had told him that a long time ago. He did learn a few things. Dothraki? The horse lords across the narrow sea. Oh, them. Black Lauren frowned through his beard. Savages believe all manner of foolish things. Yes, because your own religion is just perfect. As the night grew darker and the smoke spread, it was harder to make out what was happening below. But the din of steel gradually diminished to nothing, and the shouts and war horns gave way to moans and piteous wailing. Finally, a column of mounted men rode out of the drifting smoke. At their head was a knight in dark armor. His rounded helm gleamed a sullen red, and a pale pink cloak streamed from his shoulders. Outside the main gate, he reined up, and one of his men shouted for the castle to open. Are you friend or foe? Black Lauren bellowed down. Would a foe bring such fine gifts? Red Helm waved a hand, and 3 corpses were dumped in front of the gates. A torch was waved above the bodies so the defenders upon the walls might see the faces of the dead. Apparently, yes, a foe would. And the Ironborn do ask the right questions. Anyway.
Yeah.
The old castellan, said Black Lauren. Leopold Tallheart and Clay Kerwin. The boy lord had taken an arrow in the eye, and Sir Roderick had lost his left arm at the elbow. Maester Luwin gave a wordless cry of dismay, turned away from the battlements, and fell to his knees sick. So we get Odin and Tyr symbolism. See, Triplet Targaryens, episode 5. The great pig Manderley was too craven to leave White Harbor, or we would have brought him as well, shouted Redhelm. I am saved, Theon thought. So why did he feel so empty? This was victory, sweet victory, the deliverance he had prayed for. He glanced at Maester Lewin. To think how close I came to yielding and taking the black. So close. Missed it by that much. As Dawn would say, as Agent
Yeah. Well,
86.
as I was saying earlier, with the divine intervention, the hidden fingers, um, Theon is needed for other things. So, what you say?
You thought I was going to say 4. You don't know me. Presumption means now it's 5.
But Theon is needed for certain things later in the story. So, if Maester Lewin had talked to him and taken the black earlier that day before Ramsay had got there, then things would be different in Theon's path, and it would mess things up in the future.
Yeah, in fact, one thing I've heard speculation of is that we actually need Jane not only to be fake Arya, but then to escape to Bravos and meet real Arya, potentially inspiring her to go back. All right, where were we?
Open the gates.
Open the gates for our friends. Perhaps tonight, are they your friends? Perhaps tonight Theon would sleep without fear of what his dreams might bring. So Theon makes a common mistake, a common between him and Roderick. His nightmares are just beginning. Would sleep without fear of what his dreams might bring. Yeah, his nightmares are just beginning. In fact, yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
The Dreadfort men made their way across the moat and through the inner gates. Theon descended with Black Lorn and Maester Lewin to meet them in the yard. Pale red pennons trailed from the ends of a few lances, but many more carried battle axes and great swords and shields hacked half to splinters. How many men did you lose? Theon asked Redhelm as he dismounted. 20 or 30. The torchlight glittered off the chipped enamel of his visor. His helm and gorget were wrought in the shape of a man's face and shoulders, skinless and bloody, mouth open in a silent howl of anguish. Sir Roderick had you 5-1. Actually, it's actually 3-1, but okay. Sir Roderick had you 5-1. Aye, but he thought us friends. A common mistake. When the old fool gave me his hand, I took half his arm instead. Then I let him see my face. The man put both hands to his helm and lifted off his head, holding it in the crook of his arm. Theon and Roderick do have this mistake in common.
Yep.
Reek, Theon said, disquieted. How did a servingman get such fine armor? Another very good question. These Ironborn really are asking the right questions. He doesn't actually ask this. He just thinks it. But anyway.
Yeah.
The man laughed. The wretch is dead. He stepped closer. The girl's fault. She'd not run so far. His horse would not have. And got some references to some nastiness here.
Yeah.
His horse would not have lamed, and we might have been able to flee. I gave him mine when I saw the riders from the ridge. I was done with her by then, and he liked to take his turn while they were still warm. So it sounds to me like, whatever he does is fatal, obviously, right? So yeah. It may or may not include rape, but then he's got his necrophiliac friend. Anyway,
yeah.
I had to pull him off her and shove my clothes into his hands. Calfskin boots and velvet doublet, silver chased sword belt, even my stable cloak. Ride for the Dreadfort, I told him. Bring all the help you can. Take my horse. He's swifter. And here, wear the ring my father gave me, so they'll know you came from me. He learned better than to question me. By the time they put that arrow through his back, I'd smeared myself with the girl's filth and dressed in his rags. They might have hanged me anyway, but it was the only chance I saw. He rode the back of his hand across his mouth. And now, my sweet prince, there was a woman promised me. If I brought 200 men, well, I brought 3 times as many, and no green boys nor field hands neither. My father's own garrison. My father's own garrison is a rather solid clue.
Yeah.
Theon had given his word. This was not the time to flinch. Pay him his pound of flesh and deal with him later. Harig, he said, go to the kennels and bring Palau for Ramsay. There was a smile on his plump lips, but none in those pale, pale eyes. Snow. My wife called me before she ate her fingers, but I say Bolton. His smile curdled. So you'd offer me a kennel girl for my good service? Is that the way of it? There was a tone in his voice Theon did not like, no more than he liked the insolent way the Dreadfort men were looking at him. She was what was promised. She smells of dog shit. I've had enough of bad smells as it happens. I think I'll have your bedwarmer instead. What do you call her? Tyra? Are you mad? Theon said angrily. I'll have you. The bastard's backhand caught him square, and his cheekbones shattered with a sickening crunch beneath the lobstered steel. The world vanished in a red roar of pain. So this is sort of the opposite of Jaime slapping Ron at Cunnington.
Yeah.
Ramsey and Jamie are both in charge, but Theon is speaking up for the insult to his woman while Jamie is slapping for the insult to his woman. Sometime later, Theon found himself on the ground. He rolled onto his stomach and swallowed a mouthful of blood. Close the gates, he tried to shout, but it was too late. The Dreadfort men had cut down Red Rolf and Kenned, and more were pouring through, a river of mail and sharp swords. There was a ringing in his ears and horror all around him. Black Lorn had his sword out, but there were already 4 of them pressing in on him. He saw Ulf go down with a crossbow bolt through the belly as he ran to the great hall. Maester Loon was trying to reach him when a knight on a warhorse planted a spear between his shoulders and swung back to ride over him. Another man whipped a torch round and round his head, then lofted it toward the thatched roof of the stables. Save me the phrase, the bastard was shouting as the flames roared upward, and burn the rest. Burn it! Burn it all! Burn them all! Burn them all! Anyway, the last thing Theon Greyjoy saw was Smiler, kicking free of the burning stables with his mane ablaze, screaming, rearing. So Nightmare is a mythological flaming horse, and Theon is not getting his wish in terms of the dreams tonight.
Nope.
Up next, Class 67, Tyrion 15, a fever dream with the Silent Sisters taking care of the dead in King's Landing, interspersed with thoughts of men's mothers. What could it possibly mean?
What could it possibly mean?
Not cheekbones shattered, laughing my ass off. George is wild. It's devoted to Mariah's here. Man, anyone else ever think about if Sir Roderick had just executed Reek? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. That's another one of those divine intervention type things. Hey, Devoted.
Hey, everyone.
Glad you made it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but there's definitely some hidden fingers going on, just to make sure that the timing happens the way it needs to happen to have people in certain places later on in the story.
Right.
Which, I mean,
right.
There are those that point to the hidden fingers as that's just George R.R. Martin making the story the way it goes. But
right,
there's
thumb on the
certain
scale
things,
kind of thing.
Yeah, but there are certain things that the story wouldn't be the story if this person wasn't in this position or at this or at that time.
Yeah, I really do think there's going to be this big quantum leap reveal where Bran had to change bunches of things and yeah.
Well, I mean, how do you play a game that's already been played? And that would be with time travel. That would be with the hidden fingers.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before, but George's preferred time traveling, and he has a couple different time travel stories. One with Tyrion, the time traveling dwarf, and one with is Tyrion is that the one, the chess one, or is it the other one?
I have no idea.
Anyway, there's a couple different George R.R. Martin time travels, and they're basically quantum leap. They're this idea. If George did things just to fit the story, we would have all of the books, all of them.
Yep.
Yeah. It's probably thought out more carefully than that. That's Lizzie's point, I think. But anyway, he likes this idea that you couldn't possibly go back in time because there's too many paradoxes, but you can eliminate a lot of those if you simultaneously can't go back before your own existence, and if which is one of the rules of quantum leap, and if free will represents the ability to make those changes. So this idea that you could potentially like go back and change what somebody does, somebody's choices in the past. That's sort of the concept that he likes for time travel. So I think
I've watched Avengers Endgame, and they were sitting there talking about time travel, and they were naming off all the time travel movies. And the Hulk is like, well, those are all wrong. If you time travel from your present to the past, whatever you do does not change your present, because now your present is your past and your past is your present.
But we know that that's not how it works in this story, because Hodor exists, right? And I actually think that Bran could potentially go back to ancient times, because there's hints. First off, he's symbolically he's sort of supposed to be God the Father married to the tree, and secondly, there's hints that he's timeless. Like Old Nan basically implies that Bran is much older than she is, almost as old as the stories,
Right.
and that even Old Nan will die someday, but maybe not Bran. The way she says it, she sort of implies that he's eternal.
Right. Well, if he goes back and becomes the first Bran, then everything from first Bran all the way to current story is in his wheelhouse of being able to travel to.
Well, and even if George doesn't explicitly make him all the Brands, if he's able to go back and make the critical decisions that needed to happen, and if he strongly implies that includes things before his own creation, thus creating the paradox of him creating himself, which is sort of the whole point of the concept of God, right?
Right.
Then he's, then he could just leave it there, and people will infer, oh, he was making all the critical decisions of every brand in the past and so forth, right? Man. So in a way, he was all the brands at that point. Anyway,
it's possible.
It's one possibility. Like I always say, George likes ambiguity and to keep his options open, and
he definitely loves ambiguity.
And of course, we strongly believe that him confirming that one interpretation is correct does not necessarily rule out alternative interpretations.
Yep. Also, I like to think that George is fishing everybody. He would say and do a lot of things to set that hook in your mouth to take you get on a tangent.
It's easy to get on a tangent with these books. George is a genius. Absolutely, yeah. He's really taken advantage of his style and his ambiguity to allow for different branches and for people to think different ways and so forth, right?
Well, it's like he thinks, okay, what would be the most accepted or understanding of this sentence to mislead the majority of people to go down his fifth rabbit hole?
And right, like we talked about last episode, my favorite misleading quotes are the ones that he threw into the World of Ice and Fire, right? The not long thereafter departed at once. It's like, wait a minute, that's the opposite of departed at once. Or seldom visited King's Landing again. Wait a minute, this is past tense in a history book. How often would that be? That would imply multiple times. It would not mean never.
Yeah. George is now, I'll be honest, I have not read any of other of George's works other than the Dunk and Egg, and I like the Dunk and Egg. It's easier to read, that type of situation, but it's missing that bite that the Song of Ice and Fire has, that rabbit hole after rabbit hole that you want to dive down, but it's still really great. And there are things in there that you need to know for the current story, or seeds that he plants in them for the current story. But I haven't read any of the other works of George, so I don't know.
And I'm not saying that everybody needs to. I'm just, in fact, I still think that maybe reading King Lear or the Book of the New Sun might actually be more useful for your time, because he's got homages to those, right? The mysteries in the current story are addictive. Totally agree. Yep. So I actually think there's probably greater insight. Like I think the insight to Dany would come from her triple Shakespeare reference. It's the extra strength betrayals. We see low-key intrigue. We choose violence. I think there's insights to be gained into Dany from reading Shakespeare, right? The triple Shakespeare reference. I think that the strongest one is King Lear in terms of what is being implied about Dany's story, but potentially all three, right? It's I want to say Othello's the third one, and Hamlet's the second one, right? And King Lear's the first one. So it's never. The never one is the third to last paragraph in her penultimate. Six. In her penultimate chapter of Game of Thrones, the third to last paragraph is the never one, and that's a quote from King Lear. and then it's immediately followed. Fever Dream has many similarities, including the use of the phrase "fire and blood." The that's the vampire one, right? The riverboat vampire one.
Is that George R. R. Martin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fever Dream.
Yeah. It's basically the idea of vampires as white supremacists. It's kind of the thing. Yes, I think that's a yes.
Yes. Thanks, Bob.
The R is right next to the E. Anyway, kind of forgot what I was thinking about.
Vampire White.
Oh yeah. I was thinking about and then the famous soliloquy, "To be or not to be," right? That's actually the only one that I really noticed when I was reading it. Is I was like, oh, she's doing Hamlet here. To be or not to be, to sleep, perchance to dream, and so forth. And so she basically does a variation of that soliloquy in the second to last paragraph, the penultimate paragraph of the penultimate chapter of the Game of Thrones, and then in the last paragraph she does Othello, right? She kills her she kills her lover with a pillow, right? And so anyway, the point being that there's a deliberate 1, 2, 3 Shakespeare references there, where those are sort of the most tragic of tragic heroes of Shakespeare. But essentially, people who go down the wrong path, it's kind of wind up being villains. Is really what's being done there, right? And we've talked about the fact that and the Myronese Blot, I think it's called. That George has commented that's spot on, and that was before the last season of the Game of Thrones and he was saying we're going to see Dany from the other side. She's going to be going after people that are not slavers. We're going to be seeing her actions from the other side, and it's going to be tragic, right? And that's what he said. And George was like, this guy gets it. And anyway, yeah.
Okay. I know there's a lot of people out there that are adamantly against the Mad Queen Dany. I don't write anything out. I mean,
no, he leaves his option open. He leaves his options open, and he may have he's already talked about how he's found himself moving away from where he was before and so forth, and he may have been influenced by the reaction to the show. It's quite we always say he likes to leave his options open. There's no question that
now he swore that he would not bow to viewers.
But he's also said he finds himself as he writes going further away from where he thought he was going to go. Yeah. So he's sort of implied that he's not where he thought it was going to be.
That says one thing that's definite, and then just kind of does the opposite. He was wrong.
So anyway, yeah. And people have, and it could be kind of a combination of things. She could. Well, I guess it's sort of like the show, right? She kind of leads the war effort against the army of the undead, and then winds up.
Check this out, though. If he does not have enough time for her to go to Asshai, and what he had originally planned for her in Asshai, which would help her go down that Mad Queen path, he can't do now because he can't take her to Asshai. So that might have changed what his plans were.
I don't know in what way he thinks he's grown away from his original ending, and we don't know what his original ending was to know what way he's grown away from it.
Yeah,
but that's certainly possible.
Yeah. All right. I have no plans on Wednesday, so same bat time, same bat channel on Hump Day, which will be Tyrion chapter 15. I want to thank everybody for joining us with us. Devoted, appreciate you being able to stop by. We appreciate it. As always, we appreciate everybody that's on here. Lizzie, without a doubt. Chris the Crow Pod. I know Charles is out there somewhere. Lady Thistle, all y'all. Valencar, you've been here since the beginning. I know you're going to catch us on the rewatch, but we appreciate you. leave any comments, concerns, or things you want to see done in the comments, and we'll get back with you.
Weird.
Thanks, Chris.
My interface changed somehow. Huh.
What's that?
Oh, my interface changed. I was saying show and hide on the comments.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll see everybody on Hump Day. Y'all be
Hey,
good.
Jeff.
Take care. Take it easy, Richard.
Have a good
Hey,
one.
Jeffrey. All right, man. Have a good one. Bye.